So many of you have been asking me, Martin, what winter items, what maintenance items and PM items do you do every winter? And also, how do you keep track of everything you do? What kind of maintenance logs do you have? Well, we're going to get into all that. Let me go in the coach and get cleaned up a little bit and we'll jump right in. Details coming up on RV Street. Okay, let's get right to it. I'd like to take a couple of minutes here to set the table on what this video is going to be about. For you newcomers, my name is Martin, and all the items that we're going to be covering today, the maintenance items that I do every winter, I'll be doing on our motorhome. But most, not all, but most of the things that we're going to be covering will apply to pull-behind trailers, fifth wheels, toy haulers, any kind of a towable RV. A lot of you winterize your RV and put it in storage for the winter. We do not do that. We are full-timers and we go down south to RGV down at the tip of Texas, and that's where we spend our winter. So I'm not going to be covering winterizing. For all of you who go down to Arizona or down to Florida for the winter, this is a great time to do these things that I'll be covering today. Now, those of you who do winterize and put it in storage, you're probably getting ready to pull it out here real soon if you haven't done that already. So many of these things that we're going to be covering today will apply to you when you get your RV out of storage. This video is going to be covering the main things that I do every winter and spring to get our motorhome ready, road ready, for the next upcoming travel season. And at the end of this video, I'm going to show you how I keep my maintenance logs. Many of you have been asking me that for the last couple of years. So we're going to cover that today too at the end of the video. At the end of this video, I'm also going to put a link right up here to my playlist page. And you can go to that playlist page and you'll see all the videos that I have done thus far. See all this stuff in more detail, okay? We usually arrive down here in RGV around the end of October, 1st of November or so. And the first thing I do is I top off my 80-gallon gas tank with fuel, and I add 4 cans of seafoam, 1 can per 20 gallons, okay? I mean, even though we're down here in RGV, I mean, it can get cool at night, and having that tank full will prevent any condensation from getting built up in the tank, and that seafoam is going to keep my fuel nice and fresh all through winter. Seafoam is also a good maintenance item that I use during the year. It'll clean the entire fuel system. Seafoam will keep your fuel nice and stable for 2 years. And it's also good for diesel vehicles. So let's get started on how I Martinize our rig every winter. Number 1, the first thing I do is I change the oil. Sometimes my wife Joni will do it, but I want nice clean oil in that engine while I'm sitting all winter. Now, of course, you know that I exercise our motorhome every 4 to 6 weeks or so. It just depends on what's going on down here. But by exercising it, I don't mean I run it in place. I just start the engine. I do not do that. That can actually do more harm than good. When you just start it in place, condensation and water can get trapped in the catalytic converter, the muffler, the exhaust system, causing rust and all kinds of other issues. It's just not a good practice to do that. So when I say exercise it, I actually take it and drive it for 50 miles. I want to exercise the entire chassis, the suspension, the bearings, my leveling jacks, bringing all my fluids up to temperature, heating my tires, charging my chassis battery, just literally everything. I want to get that on the road and move the RV. You probably also have noticed that when the RV sits for a while, you'll get this light buildup rust on the brake calipers. Well, it'll clean those up too. The RV just doesn't need to sit in place, and so I take it out fairly often. So now that I've got all that new oil in there, I've got all that freshness and goodness throughout the entire engine. Now, I still have all my gear out, right? So I move right over to the car, the car that we tow behind the motorhome, and I change that oil too. I can do both vehicles with 2 cases of Mobil 1, and then I just go to the local auto parts place or the Walmart and dump off the old oil. They don't charge you anything to do that. If I had a towable RV right now, this is when I would be doing the oil change in the truck. Number 2, since I'm right there in the engine bay area, the next thing I do is I change the air filter. You can lose up to 10% of power with a dirty air filter. Now, I don't change that out every year, I change it out every other year. And this year, I did change it out. Number 3, where we park down here in RGV, we face north. That means the back of the coach and the driver's side, rear side is in the most sun. So what I do is I wash the coach and I apply RejeX just to protect it from the UV rays. Those that follow my channel, you know I don't use wax anymore. I use RejeX. Now while we're here during the winter, I'll intermittently come back and use my wash Waxall kit. I love that thing. But after I wipe off all that surface dust and stuff that just gets accumulated on the RV, then I'll come back and I'll apply more RejeX to the back and the driver's side. All these things do not take much time, but it really protects the RV. So once these things are done, over the next 3 or 4 months, these are the other things that I do while we're down here. Number 4, changing the leveling jack fluid in the reservoir. Now again, this is one of those things you don't have to do every year. I do the leveling fluid about every 3 years. This year I changed it out. But the reason I do that is, again, because condensation, you know, it gets warm in the day, cool at night, months and months, couple, 3 years, and water and condensation can collect in that reservoir, and it can start to wreak havoc on your leveling jacks. So I go ahead and change that out, and this year I did do that. It's just like your brakes. You should be changing out the brake fluid in your brakes every 2 to 3 years for the same reasons. I mean, doing these things is just a smart thing to do. Number 5, I clean all the electrical connections on the chassis. That includes the starter connections, my leveling jack connections, the generator, the transfer switch, the main breaker inside the RV, and the battery bay. Now be aware, in the transfer switch and the main breaker panel inside the RV, those lugs that cinch down those wires, they require a certain torque. If you look inside the transfer switch and the breaker panel, when you remove the lid, if you look inside there, there will be a little label in there that'll tell you the proper torque for that area. The best practice for torquing those 2 areas is to take the proper torque screw wrench and undo each lug until it's loose, and then tighten it again to the proper torque when it clicks, okay? And of course, always practice safety when you're working around electricity. Unplug from shore power and have the generator off, but not running. Here's a couple of other tips concerning my electrical bay and my main power cord. So here in my electrical bay, we have back here my hardwired EMS and my transfer switch. Here's what it looks like inside my EMS, and here's what it looks like in my transfer switch. This is where all the main power comes from into the RV. Now, it gets hot in the day, cool or cold at night, and I want to control the moisture and condensation so it doesn't get into these 2 areas and start corroding all those contacts. So I simply keep a damp rid in here all the time to absorb that moisture. As you can see right here, I have a damp rid that just sits right back there in the corner, and it absorbs this moisture. When we arrived here in November, this is the one that was in there. And look at all that water. And the one that's in there now has been in there about 2 or 3 months. This is how much water is in there now. I always carry a few extras of these. Usually I buy them in packs of 3. This is one of those things that I change out usually about every 6 months or so. I mean, I'm in and out of the wet bay all the time. I'm watching that damp rid, and when it starts getting full like this, I throw this away and I put a new one in there. This is a great way to keep moisture out of the electrical bay. So another thing I do once a year is on my main power cord prongs right here. You know, you want to keep these clean. I use about a 160 sandpaper. You can also use 4/0 steel wool. Now you can see mine are pretty clean, but that's because I keep them that way. What you want to do is you just want to come in here, and if there's any black residue, or you know, sometimes these things get hot and it'll get buildup on here. And so you want to clean these off, okay? And once you get them cleaned off, you take a little bit of dielectric grease and you just put it on these prongs and wipe it off, you know, wipe it really good. And this not only will protect these and you'll get good contact, but it makes pushing in and pulling out of your shore power a lot easier. Number 6, greasing. I grease the entire front end. And I do this after we go and take the RV out for its first exercise, okay? So we take it out for 50 miles, we bring it back, I back it in, but before I put the jacks down and deploy the slides, that's when I grease the entire front end. After I have greased the front end, now I move underneath the RV to do the leveling jacks. I have a Power Gear leveling system, and it has 4 jacks. And at the top of each cylinder, I have a wiper seal. And that wiper seal has a little Zerk fitting. I give each one of those seals 1 pump of grease, no more. After I get through the leveling jacks, I move to the rear of the coach where our tow bar is. And on that tow bar, there are 2 Zerk fittings underneath each arm. And after I give a couple shots in there, I'll cut the zip ties off of both rubber boots, and I pull the boot back, and I get several shots of grease inside those mechanisms in there, and then I wipe it with my hands, I'll put the boot back on, and apply a new zip tie. And then the last thing I do is in the very center, where those arms swivel, I go ahead and I use some of my 3M dry lube. It's the same stuff I use for my leveling jacks, the cylinders. I'll give a couple shots in there so that those arms are nice and they swivel real well in that area too. Number 7, I service my water heater. Number 7, I service my water heater. I completely flush it with white vinegar. I clean and check all of my electrical connections and everything else up in there. I've done 2 videos on this particular item, and the last one I did, I mean, I cover every single detail. This is an example of how I get into depth, and you can see all what I do there. I really like the way the version 2.0 came out, so take a look at that. Number 8, I sanitize my fresh water tank and all the water lines in the RV. I do this twice a year. Number 9, I clean and condition all the rubber stuff, like the slide seals, including ones under the slide toppers. Then I go around the entire RV and do the same thing to all my bay doors. Then I move to the front of the chassis and condition all my engine bay hoses, my water heater hoses, and the generator fuel line. Number 10, I lube all hinges, locks, my front hood arms, and windshield wiper mechanisms. This is another thing that I do twice a year. It just depends on the climate of where we've been traveling that year and whether it needs it or not. But lubing these different areas with the right kind of lube is important. I just did a video a few weeks ago on all the lubes and sealants and everything I use. So if you want to see that in more detail, you can watch that video. Number 11. Since we've been sitting here all winter, you know, the roof gets pretty dirty, and we have vents and vent covers up on the roof. So in late spring, I get up there and clean the vents and vent covers. We have 3 of them. We have 2, one over each bathroom, and the main Fantastic fan over the galley. And all 3 of them have a vent cover also. When I got up on the roof this year, they were nasty. It takes 1 bottle of Clorox foaming spray and a whole roll of paper towels to do all 3 vents and covers. After they're clean, once again, I use my rubber conditioner to clean and condition the rubber seal on the lids. And on the manual cranking vents, I lube those mechanisms with the same lube that I use on my rack and pinion slide mechanisms. Then I clean the roof covers. It takes me about 30 minutes or so to do each vent and cover. Number 12, Again, we're getting into late spring, getting ready to roll, and the temperatures are going to be getting warmer. So I want to make sure that our AC units are top working order. So I perform my annual maintenance on the AC units. So I get back up on the roof, I remove the shrouds, and I clean the evaporator coils and do the rest of the service inside the AC unit. This is another one of those things that has to be done every year. Those AC units on the roof, they get nasty. And when I did my video on that a while back ago, it's probably one of the biggest viewed videos I have. There's been several people that said, Martin, I just get up there and blow it out with an air compressor hose. Well, you can do that, but that's not going to do the trick. Those evap coils, they get dirty and they get wet, and that dirt gets caked on all those fins. You have to use the right kind of foaming agent and saturate that area and let it soak and lift up all that dirt off of those evaporator coils. One of you guys gave me a really good suggestion on how to rinse it instead of using my spray bottle. And that was using a pump up small little insect sprayer. And I did that this year and that worked really well. But I use 1 can per AC unit. And that 1 can will allow me to saturate that evap coil 3 different times and rinse it. And I also clean my drains. I do some electrical work. I take all the electrical connections off, clean them up, put dielectric grease on them, on the spade connectors, and then put them back in there. And a little 3-in-1 oil around that little gasket around the starter motor. Again, if you want to see all the details on that, you can watch that video. As we're getting ready to pull out, I want to make sure that those AC units are in top working order. By cleaning them this way, these AC units are going to have maximum airflow and going to be working fantastic. Number 13, I clean all the outside linkage and lubricate it with my special lube. Then I get under the steps and I clean and check all my electrical connections, and then I clean and lube the main sprocket and the gearbox. Number 14, I take all 3 of my fire extinguishers and I tap them. Okay, once a year what I do is I get all 3 of the fire extinguishers out of the coach. This is what we keep inside the coach. First thing I do is I just make sure that it is still charged by just reading the dial. The next thing I do is I turn them sideways and I hit them with a rubber mallet. On the bottom, turn it upside down. And the reason I do this is that when they're standing upright in the RV for thousands of miles and these things just shaking, this material in here will pack to the bottom and they may not operate right in the event you have to use them. So what you're doing is breaking this material up. And I do the same thing with the smaller ones. I'm checking the dial here to make sure that they are charged and they're in good working order there. And then hit these also. Now these are the main things that I do every winter. But you know me, I'm always Martinizing something around here. During the winter and spring, after I've done all this big stuff, then I can get a chance to catch up on a lot of the little things that I've been wanting to do or upgrades that I've been wanting to make, and then just all the other stuff that you have to do on a regular basis. Before I show you how I do my maintenance logs, I'd just like to take a quick minute and say thank you to all of you who have been so faithful in using my Amazon store for everything that you buy on Amazon, whether it's RV related or not. Bookmarking and using my Amazon store is a fantastic way to say thank you, Martin. Thank you for taking the time to making these videos and helping the RV community. The link to my Amazon store is down there in the description text. Words cannot express enough how grateful Joni and I are that you guys support us using our Amazon store. It's just awesome. So thank you so much. Also, all of you who are new to my channel, RV Street, if you want to learn how to take care of your RV, if you look right underneath this video, you'll see my logo, RV Street. Click that logo and that'll take you to my home page. On my home page, you'll see the playlist tab. Click the playlist tab and that'll take you to my playlist page where every video I have done thus far will be right there in different categories. As another option, if you look in the right-hand corner, you'll see that little magnifying glass. Just click inside that area and type what you're looking for. If I have done a video on that, it will list it. There's just no need to go to the School of Hard Knocks, okay? We just don't have to do that. You guys can do this stuff, and I show you how to do it. It all boils down to click, watch, learn, and then do it. So as promised, a lot of you have been asking me, Martin, how do you keep track of everything you do? What kind of maintenance logs do you have? Well, there are many ways to keep track of your maintenance and creating maintenance logs. I currently am keeping in contact with a company that already has an online service right now where you can log in and update all your information and all that. But they're in the process right now of revamping the whole entire package. It's going to be really sweet when it's done. It's going to give you alerts and reminders. There's going to be all kinds of information there, details about what you did and part numbers and notes and all that type of thing. But like I said, they're revamping it right now and they're looking at having that all done and launching it sometime in May. So as I stay in contact with them and I know that they've launched it, what I'll do is I'll go to our community tab on our YouTube homepage and I'll post that information and where to go and all that. Now I know some of you like to use a spreadsheet. Many of you have asked me, Martin, do you use a spreadsheet? Well, no, I don't. And the reason I don't is because I find using a spreadsheet very cumbersome to use and very limited in scope. I want a large amount of data to be put into these different fields. So, and plus I don't want to have to buy another piece of software, keep it updated and all that. I already have software where I can create my own maintenance logs. And I know most of you are going to have that too, which I'll show you in a minute. But if you're using a spreadsheet and it works for you, man, that's great. But let's go inside the RV and I'll show you how I take care of my maintenance logs. Okay, the way I keep records is I use a product called InDesign. I have a subscription to Adobe and I use Lightroom, Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, and InDesign. And those are the 4 products that I use to do all of our videos. The InDesign part is where I keep my maintenance logs. You can see right here, this is my Pages tab. And you can see I currently right now have 41 pages of maintenance logs. This is from the very beginning of when I bought the RV. So when I first started, I created page 1. I got all my information here right at the very top, the date that I started. And this was the immediate things that I did right off the bat. But as I continue through the weeks and months, I just go and I'll show you, like for an example here, when I do a particular thing and there's something I really want to highlight that I need to look at the next time I do it or whatever, I will put it in red and bold usually. When I make an entry, I put the date and then what I did. I post a lot of notes here. Some of my comments, things that I saw or things to look for next time. I'll also put names of products, part numbers, and all that. And this is why I like using this type of way of keeping track. I even put in links to particular products of where I got something or a part number. Using a spreadsheet is very cumbersome for me. It doesn't give me this flexibility to write, an entire paragraph or two on things that I want to do or things I want to say. So I just continue coming back down here. Let's just go click to this page. This was done in November of 18. I'm talking, I greased the front end and leaving the leveling jack wiper seals. Just made a point here of something that I need to remember to do the next time. You know how it is, like last year, you're doing your maintenance, you're thinking like, what did I do last year? Well, all I got to do is go to last year, and I know this document so well. I know exactly where I was, what I did, and then I can reread my notes. And I can just continue, I don't have to worry about running out of room or anything like that. Now, you don't have to use InDesign. You could use Note. You could use Microsoft Word. You could use any kind of a regular text document. Open it up, continue to add pages, just continue to make a document just like I did here. You know, you just keep adding pages and adding pages as you need it. And everything is right here in one spot. And I also, for sure, I make regular backups of all my data. I mean, not only my videos and all my artwork, but of course my logs. I do this same thing with the car, the tow car that we tow behind the motorhome. So I have two documents, one for the motorhome and one for the car. So you just got through seeing what the main things that I do every winter to our RV, okay? But I would like you to put in the comments below what you guys do. Some of the different things, or maybe the same things you do, because we all have a different type of RV and we do different things. But you know I'm really big on comments because people can learn from what other people do. We just need to help each other. So I really encourage you to put down below what you do to get road ready for the next season. And by the way, how many of you have been coming back to my 52-week RV maintenance challenge video and putting stuff in there every week? I'm just asking. Anyway, that pretty well wraps it up. This is what I do every winter, the main stuff to keep this puppy running right and get ready to travel for the next traveling season. So until next time, this is RV Street. Stick around.